Hi, this is Jane. Welcome back to ADK Talk podcasts. Winter in the Adirondacks is more than a season. It's a spectacle, and few places embrace it quite like the Sagamore Resort in Bolton Landing. For more than a decade, their Glacier Ice Bar has transformed a lakeside patio into one of the coolest and coldest destinations in the region. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on what it really takes to create an ice bar made entirely of 300-pound blocks of ice and chainsaws to cocktails served in frozen glasses with the person who makes it all happen. We're joined today by Tom Guay, General Manager of the Sagamore Resort. Tom has spent more than 2 decades with the property in roles ranging from sous chef to executive chef, director of food and beverage, resident manager, and now general manager. He's also a North Country native who really understands the Sagamore's past, present, and future. Welcome, Tom.
Welcome.
So glad to have you here. Not all of our listeners are from the region, so can you give us a quick history of the Sagamore?
A quick history of the Sagamore is probably something that can't happen because we've been together. There's been a resort here for over 140 years. And over that time, there's been so many different scenarios that have happened to the resort and the hotel that it makes its history, or our history, quite fascinating and remarkable all in the same.
Yeah, definitely. And, I know that the resort's been built and rebuilt several times over. How big is the resort?
So the resort proper, we're on what's called Green Island. So we are on an island on the lake. There's an actual bridge that you come over when you come onto the island. And we're on 73 acres. So it's a 73-acre island. And we have multiple buildings and lodges and the main historic hotel. That comprises about 385 hotel rooms.
That's big.
Yeah, it's a large resort. We can have guest counts of 1,500 people here in season. So we're busy. Not only are we big, but we're also a busy property as well.
Yeah, and a very full service property. You've got a spa, you have golf, you have boating, tennis, a big pool, or I think 2 pools.
We've got multiple pools. We've got all of the above, yeah.
What do you think has made the Sagamore endure for so long?
I think just the fact that it has endured for so long, really.
Okay.
Truly, there are 7 dates that that we fall back on. And the first one is 1883, and that's when the hotel was built. It was built in 83, had a great 10-year run, and then it burned to the ground. 1 year later, it reopened, and then in 1914, it burned to the ground again. And then the quick story is in 1930, it opened up as the Sagamore that we really see today in terms of the main historic building. So in 1930, it opened as a resort hotel, seasonal, but there was a gentleman that owned other properties and other resorts that came and ran it, and it ran until 1980. In 1980, the gentleman who owned it at the time, his name was Lou Brandt, couldn't really afford the needed and necessary changes that needed to be made to a property that had been here for over 100 years at the time. So he closed it, and then it was sold, and the Wolgens and the Tendlers purchased it. And that was the pinnacle moment for the Sagamore, and they took it from a seasonal property and made it a year-round property to go up against the Broadmoor and the Breakers and the historic Grand Hotels. We became not seasonal, we became 365. We went from 100 rooms to 350 rooms, golf course, spa, seasonal. So we really, at that time is when the Sagamore today really kicked off, and that was in 1985. Great run. We opened up as an Omni Hotel and did that for about 6 or 8 years, and then we went independent in around 1993, and then operated until 2008 when the Wolgens and the Tendlers sold the property to the Walsh family, our current owners. And people think the Sagamore is owned by a big corporation or company, and it's not. It's owned by a family. 4 brothers and a sister own this property, along with a number of other properties on the East Coast, Florida, New England, and also developed what's called the Opal Collection. So people think we're owned by Opal. We're not. We're owned by the Walshes, and we're part of the Opal Collection. So that's where we are today.
Oh, that's so interesting. I didn't realize that. Some things I've read, some interviews with you where you really talk about the Sagamore. You describe it more as an experience, not just a hotel. What does that mean in practice, or what does that really mean for you?
I think for me, the Sagamore is so much more than a hotel. We're ingrained in the community. That's probably the biggest piece to the puzzle, is that we are part of Bolton Landing, and our location on the lake too. We're the center of the lake, which is everything that happens at the Sagamore is kind of centered and focused around the Adirondacks, the lake, and our community, and that's kind of what makes us unique and special.
Yeah, I think one of the best views of the Sagamore is from the water. If you're out on a boat, it's just such a spectacular and iconic place. It really personifies, I think, Lake George for a lot of people.
It truly is. One of the neat things is to see the cruise ships from down in Lake George Village, the Lac du Saint Sacrament and the Adirondack and the Mohican. When they go by, the number of people that say the first time they saw the Sagamore was when they were on that boat and they drove by the Sagamore and saw it and said, I'm going to stay there. So I talk to people all the time that say the drive by the resort on the boat is the reason that I'm here today. And so
that's great.
Special.
We mentioned in the beginning, you're a native, you grew up in Glens Falls, you are trained at the Culinary Institute, or the CIA as it's informally known, and you've worked at other resorts. What drew you to the Sagamore?
So I was really lucky. So I grew up in Glens Falls and started working at a restaurant when I was 14.
Wow.
And through that process, went to SUNY Adirondack and was studying computer science and realized it wasn't for me. I loved the energy that was involved with working in a restaurant. And at the time, I saw kind of on the periphery that this resort had been purchased and was being built. So while I was working in the restaurant, decided that I enjoyed that field, wanted to become a chef, went to CIA. And while I was at CIA, you have to do an externship between your first and your second year. Sagamore just opened in 85, and my externship was in the summer of 86. So the first place I reached out to was the Sagamore, and almost didn't get the job. Because at the time, the Sagamore was brand new, and back in the 80s, the amount of hotel rooms in the county was a fraction of what it is today. So all the limited stay properties that we have all over the county weren't here back in the 80s. So everybody wanted to work at the Sagamore. Anyways, did my externship here, graduated, and then came back. So it really was, I saw it in a distance, decided that I would apply there. And, once you start working here, it's much more than just a job. And I talk to new hires all the time and tell them that this place is special. It's not just a place to work.
Yeah. How does your culinary background influence, or how does it shape your thinking about the guest experience?
So when you're a chef, everything you do is about center of the plate and a guest getting what you do. It's all about what we serve to a guest and all the senses and taste and sight and all of that. So you have to kind of really, at the bare minimum of hospitality, is that you work towards providing an experience for the guest. And as a chef, that's what we do every day. So we do it 300 times. If you're doing meal service, you do it for the day. We'll do 1,000 covers, and 1,000 times you're working hard to create a guest magical experience. It all just flows from that. So everything that I do now is centered around certainly the guest. We talk to our staff and say, every decision we make is for the guest. Everything we do has an implication to the guest, whether we decide to come in late or whether we decide to knock it out of the park. Our guest sees what we do. So it's important.
You've played a role in revitalizing a property called the First House that's here. Can you explain a little bit about what that is for our listeners?
Yeah, so there was a home on the island that the general manager would live in, and then there were contractors that would live in there, and it was a really neat house. So as I looked at the house and started to find out what was unique about it, aside from just a cool house, come to find out it was, quote unquote, the first house on the island. And it used to be situated more towards the center of the island. In the late 1800s, they moved it to its current location, which is down by the bridge. So when we decided we'd turn it into a 4-bedroom cottage that could be rented by our guests, we started looking for the name, and we kept falling back to, hey, this is the first house. Mm-hmm. So that's what we called it, the First House. So that was a lot of fun to work with the contractors and then the designers and the architects. And we kind of figured out what was there was a dining room that we converted to the great room. We opened up the ceiling to have a vaulted ceiling to give it more sense of space. And it's been well received by our guests. It's a lot of fun too.
Well, having also a resort like the Sagamore where, it's got great amenities, Is there an art to balancing sort of the historic nature of the building, even though it's been rebuilt a couple of times? This property's now 50, 70, 100 years old.
So the one that we're sitting in right now
Yeah.
was built in 1930. So
Okay.
we're approaching 100 years for this building. Yeah.
Is there an art to balancing preserving the history, but also making sure you're offering the latest and greatest in modern amenities?
I don't know that there's an art. We just, when we see that we need change, we take a step back and we look at kind of all the key players, and we look at the shareholders and the stakeholders, which are the community, which are our purveyors, which are our associates, which are our owners. And we try to make decisions that kind of cover all those bases. But really, we do pay close attention to the history of the Sagamore. It's registered on the historic registry, and we want to maintain that charm. We're not putting kiosks in the main hotel. That's not going to happen. You're not going to come in and check in at a kiosk, at least not in the next 10 or 15 years, because we want to maintain that, guest and team member connection for sure.
Right.
So everything we do, we ask a lot of questions. I've got a really good executive team, and we banter back and forth, and we make sure that when we take a step one way or the other, it makes sense.
That's great. Yeah. That's really great. So a somewhat recent addition, though, and one of my favorite things in the winter is the ice bar. What was the genesis of it? Who thought of it? Because it's really an amazing spectacle. And listener, this might be a good time to mention your website, which is Sagamore. Is it thesagamore.com?
It is, yes. Thesagamore.com. Yeah.
Not to be confused with Great Camp Sagamore, which is also a wonderful place. But
which we have been confused with before.
We had them on the podcast a couple of months ago or earlier last year. And they explain that too, that often people get there and they're like, wait, where's the big white buildings?
Yeah,
but it's a good name to have in common, and it's good to be associated with each other. Yeah. But take us back to the beginning. When did you guys first debut the ice bar, and what kind of inspired the idea? So
we were kind of looking at the winters, and what you want to do is you want to kind of look at the whole year the year as a whole. And, aside from going through the holidays and New Year's Eve would hit, the next time you got busy was Martin Luther King weekend, which was a pretty good weekend. And then it was the President's Week. So we had this lull that we would see. Unless there was a group that would come in, it was, there were short days and snowy, cold nights. So we kind of were looking for some things to do, a possible, food and wine weekend or something that we could generate some interest in and put some heads in beds, so to speak. Our corporate food and beverage director, his name is Scott Looper, saw an ice bar in either Maine or somewhere up north and said, that'd be kind of cool. I think we could do that. So we got together, we talked about it, and we decided, let's give it a shot. And 2014, we did the first ice bar, and we were shocked at how busy we were, like shocked. The first couple of years, it was actually too busy. There was a time when I got a call from the Warren County Sheriff saying, what's going on? There's way too much traffic. You guys got to figure this out because you can't keep doing this. And we're like, listen, there's a theme is we built it and they came. Right. What happened? So we've done some things over subsequent years to kind of pull back from that a little bit. We also want to have a great experience. So what happened was people in the area found a new cool thing to do in a time that it's really, unless you're a skier or a snowmobiler, and sometimes when you snowmobile, it's hit and miss. This was a surefire event that they could go to, and so that was in 2014. We did it for 2 weekends, and we're really, truly shocked at how busy we were.
Talk a little bit about the creative process. Is it thematic? How do you guys decide on because it's different every year? How does that work?
It is different. It's a couple things. It's different, and yet it's the same. So you're still going to have the main ice bar. And the ice bar, when I talk to people, we can have themes. And this year we've got a pretty cool theme. But when it all comes down to it, the ice bar is the center attraction. It's the main event. It's what people want to see. It's 5 bartenders just going lock, stock, and barrel for multiple hours, just straight out. It's a bar that's 35 feet long. It's the longest bar in the area for sure. And so that happens. Themes, we do the themes for the ice carvers because these guys are creative thinkers and they like to carve and do different things. So that's why we do different types of themes each year. But the premise of the Ice Bar weekend is pretty much the same. It's 2 weekends, a Friday and a Saturday. We've got the Chili Chowder Lounge. We've got interactive things. But when it all comes down to it, we've got really good music from our DJ. His name's Andy Pratt's been with us for over 10 years. He does an awesome job of getting people excited, and it's all about the Ice Bar.
That's fun. That's really fun. How long does it take to create all the sculptures in the Ice Bar?
We start in July. We'll have some emails bantering back and forth to say, what do you want to do? What do you think? Here's our ideas and some thoughts. There's an executive chef. His name is Chris Merriam. He's with one of our properties in Maine, and Chris is he's the master carver. So he's kind of like the kingpin. He's like, let's try this. What do you guys think? Everybody's like, yes, no, yes. And there's really never no. It's like, yeah, we like that idea. Let's roll with it. So that'll happen in July. And then as we get closer, we put together a team, and it's mostly from our Opal collection properties in New Hampshire and Maine, and executive chefs and food and beverage directors and their teams will come to our property. Right now, as we speak, we have a team from our property that's at the Samoset because they're 1 weekend behind us.
Okay.
So they're actually carving now for that. And the cool thing about that is that it's kind of like the dry run for us because they'll make it there. And then when they get to us, they're already locked and loaded. They already have made these large sculptures, and it's a little bit easier for us.
Oh, that's great. Remind our listeners what the dates are this year. I think this will come out right before.
Yeah, the dates are January 23 and 24 and January 30, 31. So it's the Friday, Saturday of this year. Right around the corner, actually.
I'm really curious. Do they use chainsaws? Are they using chisels? Is there heat? How do they make these sculptures?
Yes, and yes. And in good old fashioned manpower. So we get the large blocks. They're 300-pound blocks. And we have equipment that we use to lift. We have lifts and different things to put the blocks in place. But one of the cool things about building the Ice Bar is it's a fire and ice event. In other words, when we have such large carvings, you have to fuse them together. And one of the ways that we do it is we use sheets of aluminum, and we actually use blowtorches and heat that aluminum up so that when you put it on top of the ice, it melts it. And it also is a true precision. It keeps it just as true flat as you can be. So when you fuse together ice, it happens. So what you do is you put the hot metal plate on the ice, roll it around to straighten it. Then you move it off. You put the next piece of ice on top, and you move it in, and it fuses that quickly.
Wow.
So it's kind of cool.
Wow.
So what we use chainsaws, we use chisels, we use Dremels, we use blowtorches, we use leaf blowers, we use good old-fashioned hands and know-how. And so it's really all the tools that you can imagine that we use.
Is there anything coming up this year that you're really excited about that they're building?
Yeah, well, this year we're doing the Frozen Age reawakened. So we're looking back to, prehistoric times and glaciers, and when the Iceman was way back in the day. When I say the day, I'm talking prehistoric times.
Right.
So we're doing things like that. We're going to have, woolly mammoths and things like that.
Oh,
so
cool.
It'll be a lot of fun this year.
Oh, that's really fun. I have a picture from one met probably 10 years ago when you had it was a VW bus. And it was cool. I mean, these aren't just little sculptures. These are life-size things, and super Instagram-worthy moments, I think, are a big part of it, too.
So the cool thing about that is I'm one of 8 kids. And when we grew up, we had a Volkswagen bus. And the chef had mentioned he could do a Volkswagen bus. And I was like, oh, you got to do a Volkswagen bus. I mean, you just got to do it. So we had it, and it had the VW in the front.
Yeah.
And you could stand behind it. And it was just, to this day, like you said, people recognize and remember things like that.
Yeah. And the setting, I also am always taken by the setting because it's on your terrace overlooking the lake. So it's that, if you've been on Lake George and gone by the Sagamore, it's right out in front, right in front of the building. And that kind of magic hour in January at about 4 or 5 p.m. when the sun is setting and the sky just can turn pink, and it's awe-inspiring. It's such a great backdrop. Yeah.
I can tell you there are days that are when there's a lot on my plate and I'm going 5 different directions, and I'll go to the 3rd floor balcony, and I'll walk out and I'll look out onto the lake and kind of reset.
Any big lesson learned over the last 10 years of doing this?
In food and beverage, you've got to be be able to think fast and be nimble and quick on your feet. Now we do it on side of the building where we have what's called shelving rock tents. So it's wide, it's still the tent's open, but we now have the ice bar where we really are. It doesn't matter what Mother Nature's going to throw at us. We're a step ahead of her. We can have 55-degree days. We can have 10 below days. We can have rain, which is something we don't want. But now we're kind of immune to the way we've set it up. We're immune to weather.
Any funny or unexpected, maybe only in the Adirondack moments? You have bears shown up, or have you had anything that was really...
Nothing like that. I would say that just how popular it has been. One of the cool things about it is when we first started the first couple of years, all of a sudden, a lot of other properties in the area started doing ice bars.
Yeah.
So they spawned it, and it became, the county looked at it and went, holy moly, people do want to come to the Adirondacks in the middle of the winter. And they've, between the Winter Carnival, this was an event that people said, hey, we can do these things and make it work, and people will come out.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because it's really in the Lake George area. So we have on adktaste.com, we've got an events section where we kind of pull the best of the best. And I always do a feature on ice bars, and it's really only in this area that people do them. So if you are up here for this, there are other opportunities to visit some of the other ice bars around too.
Yeah. In the town there's a couple of the businesses that have done ice bars, so they'll do what they've tried to do is figure out ways to do offshoots from what we're doing. So ours will be varied from ours, and they'll do a little different than what we do so that guests can get, other experience as well. And we certainly want guests that stay with us to be able to venture into the town as well.
Definitely. Because again, if you're coming through Bolton Landing, you can't see the Sagamore.
Correct.
You are on an island, as we've talked about a lot already. But it's Bolton itself, and the town of Bolton is really special too, and a really special place. So it's great. Why do you think ice bars resonate with people so much? What do you think the appeal is?
I think the appeal is that they've gone through the holidays and 6 or 8 weeks of being locked in and inside. And this is something you can go to, and you don't have to spend money on equipment. You don't have to buy a lift ticket. You don't have to be able to, cross country. It's an easy thing to do. It's not a heavy lift. It's, you can come for 4 or 5 hours with your family and your friends or your buddies and just have fun and just listen to great music, have great drinks and be in a fun atmosphere. The other thing is it's really lively. So when you come, there's a lot going on. It's kind of fun.
And it's fun, I think, too, in that you have bonfires, you have heat lamps. It's not, you're not free. You have to dress appropriately, but it's a comfortable experience, which was surprised me the first time I came. I was like, oh, I can hack this. This is great. This is a lot of fun.
Not only is the ice bar outside, but we open the entire hotel up to guests as well. So our restaurants and our lounges are available to guests, so you can get warm, and so you can be inside, listen to live music, or you can go outside and listen to the DJ in the ice bar, and you can go back and forth and back and forth. We've got igloos that we rent for dinners, lunches and dinners, so you can meet an igloo. And each night, Friday and Saturday night, we have the fireworks. There are 4 fireworks shows that's assigned to this. And first time we did them, people were like, this is cool. I mean, you go all day long, and then you end this. What a cool way to end the day. If you've been to Lake George and seen fireworks over the lake, it's magical.
It is.
It just truly is.
Tom, this has been really fun to learn much more about the ice bar. And I hope, again, I would encourage folks to visit your website because there are pictures of it. It's something that I think really needs to be seen. Before I release you to the wild, as we like to say, we always end our episodes by asking our guests about their favorite place in the Adirondack. It's full of hidden gems, everything from classic diners and general stores to great trails and waterfalls, great places to paddle. What is your hidden gem or one of your favorite places if guests are looking for something truly Adirondack or special? What would you tell them to do?
Yeah. So when I talk to guests, the things that I say to them when they're here is that they need to get near the lake, on the lake, overlooking the lake, or in the lake. And when I've got free time, we head out onto the lake. Paradise Bay is somewhere that we go all the time. And I'll give you an example. Mark Frost, who runs the Chronicle in Island Falls. I'll see Mark periodically over the course of the year, almost every year up in Paradise Bay. And it's either before the season or at the end of the season, or it's the end of the day or the beginning of the day. So we kind of know when to hit it so that it's not too crowded or et cetera. And we always see each other and we kind of look at each other and go, yeah, this is the spot. Paradise Bay it's kind of an enclosed bay. The main part of the lake can have, 3-foot swells, and Paradise Bay is just as calm. And you can see the loon, and you can see the blue heron, and you can see all of the wildlife, and it's quiet, it's serene. So the hidden gem for me is the areas of the lake that are special. We've got, we go to Cooper Island and we picnic on Cooper Island, or we'll go places on the lake that's where I gravitate towards. And when I talk to guests or even people I know, again, you got to get on a lake. And the other thing is you got to get in it, because we are so lucky to have this body of water as pristine as it is, due to the efforts of the Lake George Association and the Darien Freshwater Institute and Fund for Lake George. And those entities really have the viability and the health of the lake at heart. So, it's critical. And, when I talk to people about not only the Sagamore, I talk to them about the lake, and it's the smartest lake in the world, and all this stuff. So it's kind of cool.
No, but I do like our listeners to hear it from people other than me, because we had the Lake George Land Conservancy on, and the work they're doing is incredible. The water, it is, if not the cleanest lake in the U.S., it is, the quality of the water, it is like 5-star. It's like you can drink it. You literally can drink it. And some people, they have a filter, but they're pulling water right in from the lake into their homes. Yeah. And I think the other thing that you touched on that I think is important, some people only associate Lake George with Lake George Village, which has its own unique charm and purposes, but it's a huge lake. It's 35 miles, and it is, parts of it are just, all of it is stunning, but especially as you move north of Bolton, it's really, here's that word again, magic, And
my daughter we get in the boat and we love to go to Rogers Rock. And, it's a great boat ride. And you go up, up north, and just before tide, there are so many areas on the lake that are like that. Hewlett's Landing and Rogers Rock, and everybody that I know that gets on the lake has that special spot that they gravitate towards.
That's great. Well, this has been so much fun. I really appreciate you taking time. Just one thing, if you could build just a really cool over-the-top ice feature with no limits, what would you like to build? And it kind of sounds like this Jurassic Park thing might be might fill that ticket, but is there something that you're just like, oh, I wish we could build an Empire State Building or something like that?
Maybe not that grand, because I think the APA might not like us building something too tall, but actually and it might not be far-fetched, and it's been done in Montreal, is some guest accommodations. There's been some thought that we would have a couple guest rooms where people could rent for the night. A chilly experience nonetheless, but that would be cool. So to have kind of a little mini lodging of maybe 4 rooms, where guests could go in, and we'd put a mattress in there. We'd take good care of them, and so that's one of the things that has been in the back of my mind, is to try and figure out a way to pull that off.
That would be really cool. I know people who've gone to Scandinavia and stayed in nice hotels.
Yeah, I want to do that. So for sure.
I don't know that I could. I don't know that I could stomach that, but it does look neat. It looks really cool. Well, thank you so much. I know our listeners are really going to appreciate hearing the backstory and the inside scoop on the Glacier Bar. And I really encourage folks, if they're up here at the end of January, to definitely check that out. Listeners, thanks again for joining us. Hopefully Steve will be here for our next episode. If you liked what you heard, please like and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to stop by adktaste.com for the latest news and insights, and sign up for our newsletter. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. Bye.